Yo, I'm back, my dudes, for another video. This one, I'm gonna be doing the final chapter of the Killing Games fanfic. Now, this fanfic obviously starts off with Shido wondering who the attacker is, and Kurumi whispers it into his ear, and he's like, suicide? How can that be? And Toka's like, that's insanity. What would have pushed them, to go over the edge? And I think it was either Shido or Kurumi said, well, there were, well, it's the only answer that makes sense, because Kurumi had examined the bodies, and it was like, well, the monitors had something to do with it, but they didn't really know what role they played. And of course, wanting to test his theory, Shido was eventually tied up by Toka and Kurumi before the timer ran out again. And this is when something odd happens. Everyone else was asleep, and then there was this weird beeping noise, and Shido just suddenly found himself awake. And you might be like, well, how is this effing possible? He's supposed to be knocked out. Well, it was the monitors. The bangles wake you up if you're near a monitor, and that should give you a hint of what happened, basically, to everyone else. First, of course, Monokuma comes on screen, and he's like, what did he say again? He said, he had said something about the attacker. I don't really remember which. He said, I think he said, attacker, come out wherever you are. I forget exactly what he said, but he said something about that, and he said, well, bust my buttons. It's you. And he was talking about Shido, basically, and he didn't really know what was going on, so he asked Monokuma, but of course Monokuma doesn't answer him, and he realizes that this isn't a live footage. This is a recording, basically. It's a video, basically. So Monokuma grabs Shido's attention and has him watch a video, basically. Now this video starts off just like weird already, by showing this like red type background, and Monokuma in the background of it, basically, and it goes into inverted colors, turning blue, and this is when Shido just started to feel strange. He had went to this like galaxy type world, and this is where he eventually hears something, a voice. Kotori was like, you are the ones, why are you still alive, Shido? And this is basically the monitor trying to take control of Shido's mind by having him hear dark voices that will eventually drive him mad if he doesn't have a strong enough will, basically. And those dark voices of his were Kotori, Kaguya, and Mana, and all of them were just asking Shido to join them and saying, well, it should have been you who died, basically. It's like a brainwashing type thing, and they're asking him to join them. And it's at this point that that it goes back to Shido's perspective outside in his outside in the normal perspective, and he's just he's sweating, and he just starts screaming and starts flailing around trying to break free of the restraints. And as those dark versions of his friends were talking to him, this is when the truth gets revealed. This dagger-type knife comes out from the bottom of the monitor. And Shido, seeing this, grabs it and puts it against his throat, basically, and of course, this dark version of Kurumi and Mana say, "Do it, Shido," basically, and that gives you a former idea of what they were gonna have him do. They were gonna have him join him and just take his own life. And he was like, "Sure, be right there." And this is, and long story short, Kurumi comes in right as he was about to actually stab himself. Kurumi comes in and stops the knife and snaps him out of the hypnosis, basically. And of course, Kurumi was like, well, and you might be like, well, how is she awake? Well, she cut her arm off, basically. Not enough to where it would actually do major damage, but enough to cut the bangle off, so she was able to stay awake. And this is when the horrible truth gets revealed, as Shido realizes the monitors were the thing that had killed everyone, basically. And it goes into a flashback of first Mana, basically. She awoke, and this is basically what happens. It was suicide. The victims were woken up when the timer ran out. They were all knocked unconscious, but whoever was closest to the monitor, or a monitor, got woken up by a special signal from their bangles, basically. And this means everyone, basically, all three of them got woken up because they were near the monitor, basically. So it goes, so Shido says, "Awaken alone." One sec, guys. Sorry about that, I had an interruption. But back to what I was saying, is that it eventually goes into Mana's perspective of her waking up and her getting under the monitor spell, and the rope that she found was actually given to her by the monitor, basically. It had dropped down, basically, and then she went to her room and actually hung herself, basically, next to Kaguya, basically. She had woken up near the monitor as well. And then the pole that she had used to commit suicide fell down from the monitor as well, basically. And of course, she eventually commits suicide as well. Next is Kodori. Kodori's was a bit different because she was in her room, but of course, Monokuma had have him on her tablet. So that, in effect, acted as a monitor for her when she was in her room. And I'm sure you get the point. She eventually fell under the monitor's spell as well, taking her own life, basically. And that ends the flashback of all of them taking their own lives. And it just shows what happened, basically. It showed their actual suicide and what actually happened, basically. They all had awoken when everyone else was knocked unconscious, similar to Shido. And yeah, I thought it was a really good twist that the original Danganronpa 3 future arc did that, and I really wanted to keep that trope in, but with a few different twists and characters from the Date A Live series, putting my own spin on them, basically. So it's not a direct carbon copy. I just used some elements and made my own story, basically. So eventually, Shido and Kurumi and Toka actually win the killing game and just live happy as they can be, I guess. But yeah, that ends the fanfic, and I hope you enjoyed. It was a lot of fun actually making this, and yeah, but I have a surprise for you guys, which I will show you on Thursday. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, until next time, guys. Peace out.